Hi, I'm RC Jim, and today I want to tell you all about getting started with a Radiomaster radio. We'll be using a Radiomaster TX16S, but you will find that the other Radiomaster radios operate much the same way. And for that matter, there's even other brands that would be extremely similar, and so you'll find a lot of things really helpful with this. Right at the start, I might say that a lot of videos out there that are trying to do the same thing were fine back when they were done, but there's been a lot of changes. So we're showing you the latest and the greatest, okay? And there's some significant changes along the way with the advent of the color touch screen and the software that goes along with that, and even the EdgeTX operating system. So this is the guide that I think that you really want to watch. I'll mention as well that on rcjim.com I've got a write-up there that tells you basically the same information that we're going through in the video. The idea is to watch the video so that you get a really good idea of what it's all about, but then print out that document so that when you're actually working with the radio, you don't have to be forwarding and going back and forth and stuff on the video. You've already seen it on the video, so you got a rough idea, but the document just helps you to make sure you don't miss something and, you know, tweak the memory a little bit as to some of the things that you saw on the video. Okay, as we go into this, I'm going to be doing it in a way that I think stays reasonably simple, but gives you a good understanding of what's going on. Now, one of the things you would find out that when you go to set up a new model in this radio, they've got a little wizard thing in there that will set it up for you, but that wizard is actually an older bit of software that was developed for the older type system, and you end up with not all of the same functions that would be available if you did one from scratch. So I'm going to do it from scratch. As that happens, you will find that it's a little bit tedious going through setting up that model the first time, but after the first time you'll just be copying an existing model and making a couple little changes. So other than being a little bit tedious at the start, hey, it's going to get you a lot better result in the end. And having done it in the sort of long sort of way at the start, it's going to give you a better understanding of what's going on, okay? So you'll end up better off in many ways. So, you know, it might be an extra 30 minutes of your time that gets invested. Probably not even that, but a little bit of extra time right now is going to be very beneficial for you in the long run. So get into it and let's have a look. Well, let's have a look at some of the basic characteristics of our Radiomaster radio. First off, as you think about any radio transmitter, it's got two basic functions. It's got a computing function that's going to take whatever you've got set on the various switches and dials and sticks and things like that, and it's going to work out what level of output is needed for each channel that's being used. So if you say from 0 to 100%, you know, if you got the aileron stick in a certain place and you've got your rate switch in a certain place and whatever, it's going to say, yeah, I need the throttle in channel 3 to be at this particular level. So that's the computing function. And that will include things like rates and expo and all kinds of fancy stuff that the computer can do, mixes and all of the rest. But then the other function is the transmitting function. It's the thing that's going to create a signal that can get sent out on an antenna and be able to be received by your airplane. And that's a separate function. So it will take whatever the computer has said needs to be the level of signal for a particular channel, and it will think, well, it'll know what sort of type of receiver is out there and what kind of signal needs to get sent to it to make it go into that position, and it'll send out that signal. The computing function on a Radiomaster is going to have one set of hardware, just the computer chips and the levers and the switches and whatever. All of that is not going to change no matter what. But in the software in it, that can change. And one thing you'll find is that there's continual developments along the way. And one of the reasons why you want to be watching this video today is that this is up to date, and a lot of the stuff that's out there in various YouTube channels is old stuff. And even if it's 3 or 4 years old, it's obsolete, okay? The radio hasn't changed much, but the software has, okay? So hardware, not much different, but software, a lot of development is continually taking place, and even the very system that's operating used to be OpenTX that it would use. Now we're using EdgeTX for the most part. So that also brings up that matter of that the names of things. EdgeTX is the firmware, the software that's running the computer function. If you have DSMX or ELRS or whatever, that is the transmitting function and what's going on there. And as you think about something that is operating that transmitting function, so for example, this radio's got a 4-in-1 module in it where it can emulate a lot of different types of signals and can connect with lots of different brands of radio receivers and things like that. That 4-in-1 module has its own firmware that goes with it. So with a radio like this, you've got firmware for the computing function, and you got firmware for the transmitting function. Whereas the computing function, all of the hardware is fixed, it's just whatever it is, that's what you've got. With the transmitting function, you've got options. So you can buy the radio with either a 4-in-1 transmitter inside or with a Express LRS transmitter inside. And then you can also get modules for the back that will allow you to do one of those or even something different on the external transmitter through that JR bay on the back. Now, as you think about why you might want to have one versus the other, as you think about the 4-in-1 versus the Express LRS, 4-in-1 is going to give you the greatest versatility of working with whatever you've already got. So me, prior to going to Radiomaster, I was using Spectrum radios, and Spectrum uses the DSM system, and DSM-X is the current one. The 4-in-1 module can connect to those receivers. So it allowed me to have a radio that connects with those. The Express LRS, which I've got here on the back, that's a long-range type of a transmitter. Can transmit up to 20 kilometers with quite a bit of reliability. In fact, even more than 20 kilometers in some situations. So very, very good for long-range stuff, used a lot by drone pilots and that type of thing. But with that one, I've got that to play around with it and to have that extra security in terms of knowing for sure that my signal is going to be okay, because I'm still just doing line-of-sight type flying. As you think about transmitting power and range and stuff like that, when you get your radio, you'll also have a choice between FCC and LBT. Now what that has to do is the legal framework in which you're operating. LBT is the legal requirements for radios and radio transmission in the European Union. And FCC is a similar thing in America and in most other parts of the world. So basically, if you're in the European Union, you need to get the LBT version. If you're in America or some other place other than the European Union, then use the FCC. Now let's have a look at the case and the controls and things that you have. You've got 8 switches across the top. 2 are 2-position. 6 of them are 3-position. Of the 2-position ones, this one holds in place in either position. The one on the other side is momentary. It springs back. You've got 2 dials up at the top. They've got a detent in the middle where it sort of clicks into place, so you know that you're in the middle. You've also got 2 sliders on the outside. They go up and down. And again, you've got a spot in the middle where it sort of holds in place if you want it, one way or the other. You've got the 6-position switch across the top, and basically whichever button you press, that one will be lit up, and that's the one that's active. And you can change along the way. You've got 6 different trim tabs. I only use the standard set of 4, these ones down here, but you could set up those up there to do other things. Naturally got your joysticks. This is set up as mode 2, but you can do either mode 1 or mode 2, and a transmitter can be changed to move from one to the other. But mode 2, you've got your aileron and elevator over here. On this side, you've got throttle going up and down, and you've got rudder going back and forth. Down here by the screen, we've got a SYS and a model button. SYS is system type stuff, and these are things that have settings that are going to go across all of your models, and the model button are going to be settings for each particular model. That'll be different for each one. Got 4 buttons down the side, a return button that will take you back towards the main screen. You've got a page right and a page left, that whatever you've got across the top in terms of tabs, it's going to tab across one way or the other way, either page right or page left. And Tele is going to be a button that you press to set up things on the screen. On this side, we've got a scroll wheel. You can dial it right and left, and you can also push down on it and click to click things. And you've got a color touch screen here in the middle. And this, again, is one thing that you will find that as you look at some videos that are available on the net, they will be ones that are using the old black and white screen that isn't a touch screen, and things will be different with this one. You've got sockets on the top. You've got a USB for connecting to a computer, and that can either be to be used as a joystick for a flight simulator program or for modifying files, updating firmware, things like that. And right next to it, you've got a little mini plug that can be used for a buddy box trainer system if you're using a cable. On the bottom, you have another USB-C connector, and this one is for charging. And you've also got your SD card down here in the bottom that you can pop that out if you need to have a look at the files that are on there. All your memory storage in there is in that SD card, and so it's something that certainly if you mess around with it, you want to make sure that you've got it backed up. On the back is the access to the battery. So you just slide this thing down and you've got your battery there, and that's the Radiomaster battery that they kind of recommend. You can see it's a 7-volt, 5,000 milliamp hour Li-ion battery rather than a LiPo. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is, but that's the one that they recommend, so that's the one that I've got, and that will last for a long time. You can do several days flying on that one battery. I mentioned about the module on the back. This is something you just press on the sides and that just pulls right out, and you can pop a different one in there. So it'll take a whole variety of different things. On the back, these finger grips, they give you an alternate set when you buy it, so you can pick whichever one you like, either taller or shorter, whatever they might be, thicker or skinnier, so that can be changed. I might mention that the joysticks are not extendable. For a lot of joysticks, you can sort of hold on to it and unscrew the end, pull it in and out, and then tighten up the end, and it'll lock it in at different lengths. This one they'll unscrew, so you could replace them with something different, but they're just whatever length you've got. You do have an eyelet for a lanyard to help support it while you're flying, and of course you've got the carry handle up at the top. Okay, well, let's set up a model. So we fire up our transmitter. Light comes on. Yeah, hi RC Jim. How are you today? Fine, thank you. Okay, now as you go to make a model, first off I need to explain to you what this model button over here does. This model button, if you give it a quick press, then it just gives you this model menu across here. And with this menu, to get across on the top items, you press on this page button, page to the right. So that takes you across. And for each one, there's, a set of information down here. And then to go backwards, to go the other direction, you just press this button below it, and that sends you that way. And then if you want to get back to the main screen, you press the return button here. So that's navigation. Now, that was a short just quick click of the model button to do that. If I hold this about a second, then I get the Manage Models screen. And this gives me all of the different planes that I've got in there. And it also has the place where I can create a new model. Now, after you've created your first model, you won't be using this new button. You'll just simply go to a plane that's similar to the one that you're going to set up. Similar in terms of types of controls, you know, one aileron channel, normal tail, no landing gear, or no retractable landing gear, fixed landing gear, that kind of thing. You'll just go there and you'll say Duplicate Model. Select that, and then when you select that, you'll have two of them, and then just one of those, you just go in there and edit it and change the name and change the picture, and you might change the rates and a few things, but it's basically, you know, pretty well set up for you. But for this very first time, we need to set up a new model. So we're touching the new thing there. It's going to create a new model. And with that, there is a wizard that would create a model for you and save you 15 minutes of time or something like that. But this wizard is a Lua script that's a bit old. And even though my firmware is totally updated as of yesterday, that wizard is something that sets up a plane that doesn't have all of the options up there. In particular, it doesn't have the flight mode normal setup on the top. So I don't think that's the way to go to get started. Later on, you could put some personal things in here, and there's other things that will set up other planes. But basically, I think your best bet is right now we'll set up one from the blank model, and then going forward, you'll use ones that you've already set up that will bypass all of the need to go through the wizard. So let's just select blank model so we can either touch on it or click in on the scroll wheel.
Pressure cut.
Okay, so there's our blank model. Now, the first thing that we need to do is tell the radio what transmitter to use. In particular, I've got two transmitters, one on the back and the internal one. But even if you didn't have two, you still have to tell it what to do. So I'll do a quick press on the model button, just a little click. It gives you a name there, and you can alter that name, backspace, you know, move around in it, you know, different things like that. When you're done, you click the little tick down here at the bottom. But for telling it the transmitter, we need to go to this internal RF. But I guess we have to do things in order. Labels, you can have it as favorites or just unlabeled. Image, you can pick whatever you want. But, let's see. There we go, SBD. Let's take the good old Dauntless Die Bomber. Okay, now, if you didn't know what all of those little short names referred to, you will be able to have a look at the pictures, and I'll show you later how you do that. But anyway, we've picked a picture. We then select internal RF because we have an internal 4-in-1 module. We want to set that up, and so we're going to pick the mode. With any of these, I can touch it, or I can use the scroll wheel and push in, so a lot of times I just use the scroll wheel. We pick multi-module, because that's what we've got. And then, with right next to it, we can pick what type of radio transmission we want. So I'm the former Spectrum guy, so I'm going to pick DSM. And with that, you note here that for the module status is AETR. Well, DSM is TAER. Throttle is on channel 1. And it knows that because it's DSM. But it's saying that this particular status of this module is that in the radio, the module here, it's going to need to have the aileron first. Aileron, elevator, throttle, and rudder. So it's not a problem. In the radio, it'll be AETR. And in the receiver, it'll be the normal DSM TAER setting. Okay, protocol, we do not want DSM2, and that first digit there is what comes after DSM, so we don't want DSM2, that's the old one. And we could pick auto, but I like to make sure I'm on the latest, so I just pick the latest one. Okay, we don't need to worry about those things there. Down at the bottom here, though, we do have a place where we have to have a unique ID. And for some reason, this always says that, well, for me anyway, when it's on 0, it says it's unique. But when I go in there and I select it, and I go back to 0 again, it's now telling me, oh, I'm using that in all kinds of stuff. So don't believe it if it says that 0 is something you don't have. But anyway, you just dial across until you find a unique one, and then you select that. And later on, we will bind to the transmitter, and this is where you do a range check. So that's the model setup. So we've got all that taken care of. You want a timer, so select timer. You don't need a name because it's timer 1 and you only need one anyway. Okay, for the mode, what we're going to want to do, I'd suggest that you use throttle percent. So what throttle percent is going to do is the timer will run at full speed when the throttle is at 100%. When the throttle is at half throttle, it's going to run the timer at half speed. So this is going to adjust for how hard you're driving that model, and it's going to be much more accurate than if you do just simply one of the ones that just runs it either above a certain throttle level or immediately as soon as you use the throttle. So use throttle percent. And I might say with that, if your instructions of the plane suggest a time, then you might adjust your time to be a little bit less than what they say, just to make sure that you're going to be okay, because this is going to allow you to fly longer if you're at lower throttle levels, and they might anticipate that you're going to do that and suggest a longer time. Okay, so the start time is the amount of time that you're going to allow for yourself. So start with something low, and then you can always adjust that when you check your battery after the flight. Okay, show remaining is saying it's going to display how long we have to go. Minute call, I like that. It's a voice thing. That's each minute goes by, it tells you how many minutes you have to go. 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. And then a countdown. You might like to have some beeps at the end just to make sure that you're aware when the time has run out. It doesn't have to be 20 seconds. You can make it 10 seconds or whatever you like. And you don't want it persistent. Persistent is after the thing runs out, it's going to keep on beeping. You don't need that. It'll run you crazy. Okay, so that's basically it as far as the model setup is concerned. So that was that first tab here. So now we hit this page right. We don't have a helicopter, so we're not worried about that. Flight modes, this is a thing that you would not have if you had used the wizard. It would allow you to set up flight modes, but it wouldn't be using the system, which is the later set of system. I'm going to use this switch A up at the top. I like to use switches on the left side of the radio for things that happen when I'm flying, and switches on the right side of the radio for things that I use before or after the flight. The reason for that is when I'm flying, I'm concentrating on the joystick over here, but with the throttle, I can have that up part way, and that'll be fine, and I can play around feeling where switches are and stuff like that, and get things set the way I want. So I use switch A for flight mode, switch B for flaps. I use this switch E for stabilization, and F for landing gear. So those are all things that happen when I'm flying, and they're all over here. And I use the dial on this side for the level of stabilization. The only thing a person might do differently, I guess you could use have 6 stages of flaps along here. You might do that, or you might use a slider on the side for flaps. As you can see, I'm using it for screen brightness. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. So I've got a 3-position switch for flight modes.
Flight mode 2, flight mode 1.
Yeah, and it's reminding me what they all are. So because I'm using 3 flight modes, I want to just keep it unconfused, and so I'm going to keep flight mode 1 as flight mode 1, and 2 is 2, and 3 is 3. So I'm going to set up those 3. So I press in the wheel, I give it a name, and something very short and simple. Flight mode 1, put that in, pick the switch, put it in the position that I want, enter it, no fade in, fade out, down, back, and then flight mode 3. Okay, so that's the flight modes all set up. We page to the next one. Now here we've got inputs, mixes, and outputs. So inputs says what to take from the joysticks that are coming in, and you could have switches here, but generally it's going to be things that have infinite variable sort of output. So typically your joysticks, and it's going to say, you know, do we want to massage that at all? Do we want to do a little bit of tricky stuff, you know, expos and rates and, you know, various things like that. So first off, we've got aileron, and you notice it's already given us an AETR, so you leave it that way. That's the way that we want it. Also notice that next to each of these, it's got that same symbol that you see up at the top. So that's talking about the inputs aileron, inputs elevator, inputs throttle, inputs rudder. And so over here, we're going to be doing various things that will affect what that category has as an output. And then this output from the inputs, this total thing here is going to be what the mixes pick up. But anyway, for right now, what we want to do is just simply go in there and we'll edit this first one a bit, and then we're going to do some copying. Where you see aileron with a picture of the joystick, that's saying that the input is going to be from the joystick. And as you see the little graph over here, that's showing you what the joystick is doing. The position of the joystick is left and right, and the amount of output to give related to that, how much the control ought to move, is up and down. So right now it's all linear, and it's giving us 100% all the way up to the top. But we're going to make this one to be flight mode 1, and so we're going to dial down on the rate. Now the actual rate that you'll end up using will be related to what your model instructions tell you as to what the deflection needs to be for the control surface. But for right now, we'll just make sure that we've got, you know, some figures in there that you can get you started. Okay, so we've got 80% rate. We don't need to apply a switch, but we do want some expo. So expo is where it's going to put a curve into this thing. And what that is going to do is it's going to say that when we're near the middle here, that we've got the equivalent of having a lower rate. It's you know, less abrupt, you know, it's more controllable and all of that type of thing. And then when we get out here near the end, that's where the thing really takes off and gets us up to our maximum of 80%. As you see the little 00 there on the side, that again is telling you, first off, the joystick position, it's all the way at 100%, but the output is only 80%, and that's because we put in an 80% rate, which they call weight. Okay, so again, the expo will be something that's very personal. Some people don't like it at all. Other people like heaps of it, but 30% might be something typical. But then we want to get into the settings menu down at the bottom, and then this is where we assign the modes. So this is going to be mode 1, but I want to include mode 0 with it as well. And the reason for that is I don't want any possibility whatsoever that somehow this radio is going to get into some sort of mode that means my ailerons don't work. So I'm going to make sure that all of the potential modes are covered by one of the things that I put in here. So this first one I'm going to have as 0 and 1. For mode 2, I'll put it in just as 2. But then mode 3 will include 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Just to make sure everything's covered. Okay, so I click several times to get out of there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to copy this, and we're going to paste in a copy after. So I say copy, then I press it again, and I say paste after. And it created another one. And then I do that again. I press it in, I say copy, Press it in again, and I say paste after. So that's created 3 of these that are all identical, all of which are giving an impact upon what aileron is. But obviously we don't need 3 identical things, so I'm going to edit this one for mode 2, and I'm going to give it 90% of the output, and I'm going to give it 35% expo. Reason for going a little bit higher on the expo is to try and keep things more even in the middle, okay? So that if I change rates and stuff like that, it's not change flight modes, it's not going to have a big impact on, say, landing the airplane. It's going to feel pretty much the same. Okay, so then we go down here and we say this one we want to be on mode 2. Okay, so we exit out of that. Okay, and then we go to the third one. We edit it. This one is going to be 100%. And I'm going to go to 40% expo. And this one is going to be modes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. Okay, so now we've got 80, 90, and 100 as far as the rates, 30, 35, and 40 for the expos. We got mode 0 and 1, mode 2, mode 3 to 8. As I flick the switch up here, it then shows me what's happening. The yellow highlighted bar indicates whatever is active, and so this confirms for me that with a switch, I've got one mode for each position of the switch, and they're the 3 different flight modes. Okay, having done that for aileron, I'm going to just go ahead and do that for the elevator and the rudder. Throttle, just leave, but elevator and rudder do the same thing as what we did for aileron. So we now have everything put in there. We've got aileron 80, 90, 100, elevator 80, 90, 100, expos 30, 35, 40, 30, 35, 40, flight modes 0 and 1, 2, 3 to 8, 0 and 1, 2, 3 to 8. Doesn't hurt to check to make sure with the switches that they're working appropriately. Scrolling down to see the rest of it. Okay, throttle was unaffected, but rudder 80, 90, 100, 30, 35, 40, 0, 1, 2, 3 to 8. And again, verifying that those work. So that's all of our inputs. Now we need to page across to the mixes. With that, they're already in there. We don't need to do anything at all to those. It's going to take the input from the aileron. If I edit this, okay, you can give it a separate name here, but the source, and actually it doesn't hurt to give it a name here. That will come in the next screen. So let's name this one AIL. I'll just use all capital letters and put that there. But where the source is, you see that it's got that symbol like what we had up at the top for the inputs. So it's saying that what the inputs section has worked out, that's what it's going to take as its source. Now, down here, if you had picked, say, joysticks, pick that category of joysticks, you could have picked aileron there, and now you see it's got a picture of the joystick there. That would be taking it directly from the joystick itself rather than from what you worked out on the inputs. So just noticing here, there's 0, there's 100%, even though I'm in mode 1, and I can change the modes, and it has no effect on it whatsoever, because it's just simply taking the input from the joystick. So we don't want that. What we want is the inputs. So go to the inputs, I want the aileron input. And now with the aileron input, I get 80% when I go there. Mode 2, I got 90%. Mode 3, I got 100%. Okay? So it's already set up that way, but just letting you know that that's what those things are doing. So those are the 4 inputs that we've got from our sticks and where they're going out to the channels over there. If you did have another channel, you'd come down here to plus, and that would allow you to add another channel, and you'd pick which one. And as you pick the channel, you then tell it what you want as the input, and it'll have that in there. So we'll now move across to the next item, which is the outputs. And you can see here that we've got channels 1 to 4 already in there, as well as all of the rest that we specified, you know. So anyway, they're already there. So the only thing that you're going to be doing with this is if you need to reverse something. And say with your ailerons, let's say they're going the wrong direction. Well, you just go down here, and where it says inverted, you just touch that, and it'll make them go the opposite direction. Okay? So that's all you'll be doing with that. Okay, as we tab across, there's not too much else that we need to do here. You could put in some special functions, but really most of those we're going to do in the system menu. And if you have a telemetry receiver, it'll show you the telemetry items here. But basically, that's done. Okay, for the system menu, you've got these Lua scripts, which are little bits of software to help do things or to do shortcuts to make things easier, stuff like that. So, you know, smart telemetry is something that you use to set up a Lemon receiver with stabilization and programming and all of that type of thing. It helps you set up the settings for that. Express LRS helps set up the Express LRS module like I got in the back, but at this stage you don't need to worry about those. Next one is the SD card. And the main thing here is, for now anyway, this is giving you the content of the little SD card that's in the bottom there. There's a little underneath here, there's a little SD card in there. And that's where your firmware is and information it needs for various things. But under the images folder, you've got the various pictures of the airplanes, among other things. And this is where you can actually see what they are. So you can scroll through here and have a look to find a plane that matches what you've got, and then just write down the name, and then in the model setup, you can then pick that name for the picture. Okay, so as we page farther across, got the date and the time, variety of other things that you don't need to worry about. You can pick different color schemes for your display. But here we got global functions, and this will be in another video, but where I've got the switch that tells you
Flight mode 2.
Stuff like that. That's where this is. And you can see that when I flicked the switch to flight mode 2, it highlighted that, saying that that one was active, and it's playing the track flight mode 2. There's soundtracks inside the radio, and you can have it play that. It's also where I've set there the brightness of the screen, backlight. I've set the volume over here on this side, you know, using that one. So anyway, lots of different things that you can do. Reset the timer, and that's probably a worthwhile one. I use this momentary switch over here to reset the timer, and I've actually got, in some planes, 2 timers. It's not so important when you got telemetry and you can see the battery voltage, and actually with the Radiomaster it's not much of a problem as compared to the Spectrum radios. Especially the Spectrum radios that have 2 timers, one that counts down and one that shows me the total time. And the reason for that is the countdown timer, when it goes past time, it starts counting up, but it looks just like it looks when it's counting down. If you just glance at it, you don't know which way it's going. But anyway, that's not a problem with this radio. So let's just have show you what you need to do to set up this timer reset. So what you do is you scroll to the bottom of this page and you find a plus. And when you get there, you then click on whatever the next number is. So you click on this GF15. Okay, I'm not going to do that, but I'll go back up to one where we've actually got it. Reset, we had it there, reset timer. Okay. Okay, so when you create that new one, you're going to then get this screen. So what you do, you first off click on that trigger, So let's just show you. If I push in that and then I flick the switch to the one that I want, it's showing me switch H in the forward position. I then select that, and then I select the function. And this function that I want is reset. So I have all of these options in there, but you pick reset. And then what I want is reset, well, timer 1. And timer 1 will be one of the things that can be reset in the radio. I then have to tell it to be enabled, and with that, it's all done. Okay? And I have the 2 of them in there because I had the second timer, but you'll only need the 1. So I've play tracks for throttle cut and stabilization mode and flaps and everything under the sun. And I also have one in there for SD logs. That's to create a flight log. Every half second it'll have a line in a spreadsheet that gives the values of all of the controls and all of the telemetry values. Okay, so that's all that you need to know about setting it up, but we still got a blank screen here, and we think, that looks pretty dull and boring. Can't you do better than that, Jim? Well, yes, we can. This tele button at the bottom is for screen settings. And with screen settings, you can set the settings for the bar across the top. That's that first thing. Then the number 1 here is for page number 1. And you can hit the plus and make a page 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And you could use these page buttons here to go across between them, either when you're flying or when you're working on your plane. So anyway, right now we've got page 1. You pick a layout and you can take whichever one you want. Each one of those squares will be something that you can put a display in of some sort. You can select what you're showing here around the sides. So, you know, I've got mine with the top bar showing. I've got the flight modes showing at the bottom. I've got sliders and trims along the edges. So I've got all of those selected except for mirror. Now imagine mirror might be needed for some goggles or something like that are being set up. So anyway, then you just hit set up widgets and you pick the area that you want. And I want the model information here. So model info is going to go there. Color is going to be the name of the model, and I want something nice and dark so I can see it. So I'll use that. And I also want it big enough to be able to read, so I can go extra large. Okay, so that's that. So now I've got a model picture and the model name up there. And actually, let's go in there, widget settings. Down here I've got use theme color. I want to take that off because I want it really dark. Okay, so now we got it really dark and it's really obvious. Okay, over here, yeah, what do we want there? Maybe the timer, huh? So we will go down here to timer and we'll put that in there. Source automatically comes up as timer 1. And here, if you got telemetry and you got the ability to show battery voltage, I would be saying let's use the battery check. So the sensor is going to be A3. Oh, okay. I would pick A3 here, but because I don't have a telemetry receiver hooked up to this, it doesn't know what I've got for telemetry. There's nothing in there, so it's not showing me any telemetry values. So I'll have to pick that one later. But when I do, I'll again want a nice dark color. I'll save that. And show total voltage. No, I want to show per cell voltage because that's something that's going to be consistent from plane to plane no matter how many cells I've got in the battery in terms of level of charge. Okay, so that'll be showing the battery voltage down there. You can, as I mentioned, include things across the top. You could have signal strength, although here with this one that they automatically give you, the little speaker that's telling you speaker volume. The one below that is talking about the level of battery charge in the transmitter. And these bars over here is telling you signal strength. Those are pretty important. But we'll have another video that tells you more about the displays and options that you have concerning that. So that does it for setting up your model. Naturally, you'll be going to your manual and checking to see what your controlled deflections need to be and adjust the rates in the model menu to suit that. And there's a lot of other things you can do with this radio. You know, I've given you the basics here. But if you go to the Radiomaster list of videos in our YouTube channel, you'll find all kinds of additional videos on how to do more advanced things. But this will get you going, so get right into it and get flying and enjoy your hobby. I'm RC Jim signing off. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you subscribe and have a look at some of the other videos on the site. You have a great day.